To me, it's also fascinating the idea that normally this is like the civilization has developed. So from an agricultural productivity, so normally the cities, towns, or the countries, they used to go from the agricultural to the industrial in the cities. So many people have moved from the countryside to the urban areas. But now we see that with technology, in some way we can kind of reverse that, because the second or third generation that they have moved to the cities, they can come back either virtually or for a couple of days and then oversee the total running or the operation of their family business or the operation in the countryside.
Yep.
Are you really optimistic about that? Is it possible that from the cities you can oversee the operation going on in the countryside or in the plantation?
Optimistic, yeah. It's going to happen.
Okay.
I'll draw on mining as a good example. Mining operations in the middle of nowhere, for years have done what they've done. Look at what BHP and Rio Tinto now do in Australia. The mine concept in Australia is they all have a central control room where they actually can monitor and remotely control mines from Perth. So they can see all the mines. They have all that smart logic sitting in a big control centre where they're actually monitoring operations right from the mine right through to from pit to port basically and out. And that's been driven by market forces and keeping costs down and things like that. Agriculture, why is it any different? I've worked for some of the big ones like GrainCorp, and GrainCorp's about monitoring from the field all the way through to the export terminal. In what I'm seeing in palm oil, you're right, they don't necessarily live on the plantations anymore, they live in the city. But what they're looking for is the visibility of their operation.
Correct.
And if they get visibility, then they've got comfort. So we are seeing it today. The stuff I'm working with now in Sabah, the focus there is from the management level is he just wants to know what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? He doesn't want to always be calling managers. He wants to trust them they can do it.
Yeah.
One way of getting trust is transparency. So we're seeing transparency driven then from, let's call it the second generation, because that's the way they want to operate. And then we're seeing market come in with organisations saying palm oil with RSPO for certification for sustainability. What's the secret to sustainability? Transparency.
Transparency.
So how do we make the supply chain transparent? And technology or innovation through technology is the solution. And I believe, you asked me, optimistic. It's available today, and it's going to continue to evolve today.
So we just need to pick like some examples from different industries and see that anyway it's going to happen here in palm oil industry.
Yeah, and look, it's also it's within agri, so different sectors in agri.
Yeah.
Whilst everyone will tell you they're all different, they are. But the truth is, we still do the same thing. We plant something, we grow something, we harvest it, we consume it. Right? Doesn't matter what agriculture. Some have got different time frames and different ways to do it, but that's what we do.
Same value
Mining, we pull it out of the ground, we logistically move it, we process it into something, and we consume it in terms of construction or whatever.
Yeah.
We can learn from the mining industry. The mining industry has evolved quickly. Standards in field control, PLC, 20, 30 years ago, they were all different. GE couldn't talk to an Allen Bradley. They all had proprietary. The IT industry went through it. Remember, you buy a Dell, you'd buy a DEC, a HP. They're all proprietary operating systems, proprietary communications. We standardised on IP.
Yeah.
IP opened up for a computer world integration. PLCs are now standard IP. So all of a sudden now we can talk to a field device and an IT device, and we can get information out of that and information out of that, and we can use that information to make decisions. and it's affordable. So it's affordable today. So on a technology level, we're there. It's now about how do we change and get the market, so change management, market driving it, and then we will see the industry move and evolve into that next level.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know that I'm very I like to think, and I think for a fact that it's like that knowledge is transferable. So from one industry or from one example from a different crop, so you can transfer the knowledge. Probably you don't have all the knowledge based on that crop, but you can see like the whole picture from a different experience or something that has happened in the past, and is going to show or lead the way for the other crops, like for instance for palm oil.
Yep. And look, I'll tell you one thing where they are all the same. Trading. All right. I don't care if I'm selling a load of coal or a load of iron ore. The way I trade and sell coal and iron ore is no different than the way I would trade palm oil or wheat or canola.
Yeah, right.
The market trade is ultimately still the same.
Same, yeah.
So, and that's why you'll have the big commodity houses. They trade different commodities because they will trade one commodity off another, and you know they want to see trading strings. But what's driving pressure on the trade is it's the market. GMO free, for example. Whilst I don't necessarily, I told you, I think GMO's got a place to play for the future, but at the moment it's driving the market. It's saying we don't want it. Okay, so that influences the trade. You've got RSPO, for example, now saying it's sustainable. It's got to be certified. So what's happening is the trade is saying, or the market's saying, we want sustainable palm oil. The only way we can do that now is the trade is saying, well, I can only trade a contract. It's a piece of paper. I need to know that I can get transparency into the supply chain. So what we're seeing is now it's that side of agriculture, the trade side, is now, which is coming from the market, is now driving what's happening in the field. So how do we get transparency now in the field? If you look at a conference I just come back from, there's no doubt, no discussion, right? Transparency at the refinery, transparency at the mill is easy.
Easy, yeah.
All right, it's easy. We do that now. They all do it. What they don't do is transparency in the plantation. Now everyone will tell you why not. The excuse is, because once we get it into a crushing mill, it's commingled anyway, and from there it's saying, well, that's fine. So that will happen, but again, the market will drive that. As people get a premium, they will start segregating in mills. That will drive the cost to upgrade mills. All right, and as mills get upgraded, they'll segregate. They will still want to trace back to a block, and then I think to your point, for a market perspective, they don't care which tree it come from, but they will care how that tree was cared for and how it was, it's not on peatland and all this sort of stuff. What will drive tree visibility will be the market, again, just in pure yield. Fix the process, you can fine tune your process. The only way to fine tune a process that's working well is you've got to get to the next level down, which is, I think in your paper you said, getting down to the tree level. And it's when we're at that level that's going to drive that extra little bit out of the market.
Okay, so you just came back from this event. It was the Palm Oil Sustainability Conference in Kota Kinabalu, KK.
Yeah.
So what are your two main takeaways out of the conference? Where you see where is driving towards the, I don't know if RSPO or which organization that is really leading the way of sustainability for the industry?
Look, the takeaway for me for the conference was, and again, I have to sort of say I'm an old dog, right? I've watched the wheat industry evolve, I've watched corn, I've watched rice, so I've seen those. Palm oil is a very interesting one. RSPO, I'd have to say, is one of the most proactive organisations, industry organisations I've ever seen in the agri industry. But there's more. There's the Malaysian Palm Oil Council, those guys. And that conference was the first time I've seen the NGOs and the industry bodies and the industry, so farmers, all sitting in a room with government, discussing the issues. And what again astounded me is you had some people in there to say, I remember one gentleman stood up and said, I don't know why we changed government in Malaysia because you just tell us what to do anyway.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a view that was shared in the audience, right? I mean, there was some that said, yes. But the response from the scientist was very good.
Okay.
He said, I'm not here to tell you whether you're doing it right or wrong. I'm here to tell you these are the facts of what's happening. And he showed the landmass and the change of time from 2000 to 2017. And he showed the peaks. Remember, if you were in KL when I think it was around 2015 with all the fires.
Yeah.
And he showed the change in the land that happened just in that 12, 18 months. And then he turned around and he said, people are saying, is it RSPO that's made this change? Is it the Indonesian government changing to say that this is actually illegal now, so therefore we're going to put a stop to it? And he said, and there's been an actual fact, a reduction in the land being, let's say, used for farming, where as before it was growing, right? And then he went through the scenarios, and then his last thing was, the last thing we looked at was price. And we look at the price of CPO, and from 2000 to 2000, I think it was 8, the price went up. And we've seen an expansion of land, which is a natural thing to market reaction.
Yeah.
From there, putting aside the two anomaly years, which were outliers, it's actually gone down. And it aligns with CPO prices have come down. So the scientist said, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. I'm just here to tell you this is the facts. How you use that information is entirely up to you. And to me, that was a brilliant answer.
Yeah.
It didn't start a fight. The guy had to actually, you've helped me. You've given me that information. Now, what do I do with the information? And for me, it was a different conference that I've been to. So I think the palm industry, it's one of those things that's been held back for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to evolve quickly, and the engagement I see with organisations like WWF, the banks, HSBC Bank was there, finance companies, fertiliser companies were there. That collaboration and healthy discussion we're seeing is positive for the industry. And at the end of the day, it still gets down to market. You've got a group that says sustainability is a waste of time, and they're people that really don't care about tomorrow. Because sustainability is about what we do today.
Yes.
Making sure that what we leave is still there tomorrow to feed our children tomorrow. Today, it's just me. Tomorrow, I got 3 boys. So we're logically got to produce more somehow.
Yeah.
So sustainability is how do we leave what we've got today in a better shape than what it is. And it isn't one thing. It's change management. It's management of things like pesticide and chemicals. It's yield. It's genetically modified to improve, because we're all increasing in population. We need to make sure we do the same with less land. So sustainability is many things, and it's not one thing. Someone says to me, it's education. Well, it's not. It's education, it's training, it's innovations, it's chemical, it's all these things. And I think your paper captures it very well.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so just going to the point of the article and the paper. So I really love this idea of the profit per tree. I don't know if that is the correct term or whatever. I wanted to describe it like this, because normally in the plantation, the industry used to have traceability based on hectares instead of trees. But the idea, once we get into sensors and monitor each tree, and then that can give the information for the agronomists, and then the agronomists can be like that kind of doctor for trees, and then take care of those trees in need.
Yep.
So what is your take on that, and how you see the future for that kind of productivity? Where do you see it's more likely to happen in, I don't know, in Malaysia, Indonesia, or which part of the world? Just share with us your view on?
Okay. Again, it's a commercial decision ultimately. I look at it this way. If I talk about profitability per tree or monitoring per tree, no one honestly is interested. Palm Oil Board is doing trials now where they're monitoring, the how trees grow, size, the width of it, the soil for moisture, all that sort.
Yeah.
As we've already discussed, the ability to do it is there today. Okay.
Correct.
But commercially, is it there? It's not. And at the moment, when I talk to guys about do we get it down per tree, how many trees have we got per hectare so we can divide it all by, the guys go, not interested, just give me per hectare. And it's, as I said, change management takes time.
Yeah.
And I agree with them. Today, the improvements we can do on a hectare basis are significant.
Yeah.
So let's get them first. So let's focus on per hectare so we can start getting sampling, maybe a few spots per hectare, and we start getting information on hectare basis. We start getting it where we're collecting bunches out of, sublots and things like that. What's going to happen is as that gets built up over time and the information's there, farms or plantations will evolve to the next level. And what we will see is they will start saying, well, we've improved production from 2 metric tons of CPO per hectare to 5. All right, so we're at that industry acceptable level. But then what's going to happen is they're going to go, how do I go from 5 to 10?
10, yeah.
And 5 to 10, in fact, I think it'll be less than that. It'll be like 5 to 7, right? That next lot will be at a tree level, because I think you mentioned in the article, you might have 100 trees. And out of that, if 10% of those trees are not performing, they're dead, they're broke, whatever, then that's just lost production. So when they can get down to actually per tree basis, what they're then doing is saying, well, that tree or those 3 or 4 trees, if we just improve the nitrogen levels in the soil, then we can actually improve the quality of the yield. I know one of the big palm organisations at the moment, they, again, I'm a bit sensitive about who does what, but they were saying to me, the drones, the value of drones. Now for them, their first project was just spotting dead trees. Now the value for that's only got a short period of time, because it's all right to go and say we're in a palm plantation that's 15 years old or 20 years old. We find a tree that's been hit by lightning and we've got to replace it. Do you go and put a small palm in there and start growing it? No, it's lost production. But in those early years where they might have a high mortality rate in the field, if they can get to them early enough and change it, put in a new tree, the calculation just in one trial, and this was one of the big ones, was he quoted me a number of $700,000 US just in one scan of what would save them in production or additional production based on what they had lost from lost trees. So that sort of information at a tree level, it's going to start happening. But I think the next level then gets down to fine tuning of things like soil nutrient, crop inputs, and all those crop inputs, fertilizer, water, all that sort of stuff. We will be down to monitoring trees, or at least small plots of trees, where they will be looking at the yield of small plots of trees, and then putting specific sprays or treatments just on that. And again, lower cost because they're not wasting chemicals on everything. So per tree will come, but it'll be an evolution, and hectare will be first because it's there now, and all that's going to happen is we'll extract as much as we can out per hectare, and then once we're there, as technology improves, those micro sensors become cheap, we get communications available, trees will start, and it'll happen.
Anyway, in the process of change management, so we need to start out with things that are familiar for the users, so like hectare is the most familiar thing for them. So we need to start working on the per hectare thing. Then once we improve it, and once the users or the owners they see the potential, they will go for more.
Yep.
Okay, so how we can get more, and then probably that is where profit per tree can come into picture, and then we get to the full potential.
Yes, because they will start looking at it. And as I said, it'll get down to tree or small plots of trees where they'll be able to look at it and say, well, why is this one yielding 6 or 7 and they're yielding 4?
Yeah.
Now, they're all being, activity-wise, doing the same thing. The difference then is it's getting down to the characteristics, the soil types, the way it's been treated in terms of maybe fertilising and things like that. And to me, that's when you get to squeezing that extra bit out of production. So it will happen. If you're asking me how long, I think it'll happen faster than we think. That's all. I mean, it's a strange. It's again one of those answers that's not really an answer, but put it this way: 30, 40 years now, or in fact the industry's a lot longer than that, but it takes a long time.
Yes.
The discussions I'm having now with plantation owners is already about how do we get that next level. So I think it's going to happen faster, and the technology is available. It's affordable. So from a cost and availability, it's there. Market pressures is now driving it with things like sustainability for transparency. I think we'll see an acceleration. If I liken it to big data, if you look at Australia, where I'm from, and the US and Europe, and I'll call it big data and mobility. We've just gone through analytics where there were separate analytics projects, and we spent millions and millions of dollars in it. And now we've evolved straight to big data. Now it's all about big data, and we've got these Cloudera and MapR and all those guys. In Asia, we're not going to go through that analytics phase. We're just going to go straight to big data, all right? Yep. They're going to evolve straight there, and
right there,
I say that because that's what's going to happen in agriculture. All the changes that went through in US and the things that have gone through in Australia, and how the market operates, and how harvesting tech, all that stuff. What's going to happen in these low socioeconomic regions is they're not going to go through all those pains of learning. We're going to go to the next level. So it's really a case of we don't have to have time to catch up with innovation. The innovation's there. It's the change management and how quick the organisations consume that change. And the ones that can manage change well will be the ones that survive. Again, I think in your paper it was a good point you picked up, is I can't remember the quote, it was about the guy that sort of has it, but the ones that learn it are the ones that are the new future. Hafner. A great quote, because it is that second generation of the learners, and they're the future. And that's what's going to happen. They're looking, they've got the experience of looking at these other industries, and they're going to look at that, and they're going to accept the change, and they will bring the change in those organisations faster. So putting a time frame on it is going to be hard, but I don't think it's 20, 30 years. I think, if you put 10 years on it, I think that's a good estimate. But I think in that 10 years, we will see significant changes.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, we need also to set up milestones for this to really be fully implemented.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I read one of the comments from one of your friends, John Broadbent.
Yeah, I've known John for a long time.
Yeah, basically, I totally agree with the guy. So he says that for this to work, so we need system, process, and people to have really aligned. Based on your previous experiences with wheat and other industries, how we can do to align these three things in order to be like more harmoniously to be implemented?
Yeah, look, there is no silver bullet for that one. But it's if I take the palm oil industry now, it is all the stakeholders together looking at the solution. Now, I'll tell you the one thing that was missing in that conference, it was the trade, right? Okay. Now, the trade conference will happen in March. But the trade still ultimately drive the market. But there is no silver bullet. In Australia, I think I gave you the example where it was an industry dominated by the big guys, the wheat board and the barley boards. And organisations like GrainCorp were the sole bulk handlers. And that industry changed when we actually started standardising data. When I first come into that industry, and I'm talking 25 years ago, and I still remember my father having his wheat board card, right? But if you wanted to deal with a wheat board, you had a wheat board card, you had a barley board card. That held the industry back. Okay. It took me 7 years and with my industry peers, but it took us 7 years to implement a national card. Now everyone thinks, oh, a national card, well, Big Brother. It wasn't about Big Brother. It was about making the industry easier. Mm-hmm. And what did we actually open it up to? More traders. So traders could come in and sell. And how we made it easier? When they had wheat board card, there was no way you could sell to another grower because you had to somehow record his details and whatever. And as a bulk handler, I wasn't interested in doing that. So we implemented this national card. The grower could go and put his details into the national registry, the banking details, everything. Buyers could actually register there. And when the grower selects that buyer, the buyer could go to the NGR, pull down all the grower's details and start paying him straight away. So the efficiencies in that happened overnight. The other thing that happened was before, the farmer only ever got one choice of price. When we opened up the market, the traders came into the market. Growers had choice. What they got as a return for their product went up. Yeah. All right. So the big monopoly traders, they were the losers, right? As the industry evolved, they were the losers. All right. The winners were the trade, because all the trade could start coming in and buying and selling. The other winners was the farmer. Mm-hmm. The farmer got a better price for his product. Okay. The key stakeholders all were successful. And honestly, I still see it's going to happen in palm oil. All right. At the moment, whether you want to mention the names or not, they control the industry today. Yeah. I would love to see a free port get set up in Sabah. Would we actually see different trade come in and start buying it direct out of Sabah and get a port, so cheaper port costs, cheaper logistics costs straight from Sabah to the market. It's an open port, right? Not owned by someone or dictated by a government. When we start seeing that in palm oil, and I think it will happen one day, then again that will happen. So there's no silver bullet, but the secret is all parties have to work together. And for me, I don't have the answer, but I can see palm oil is starting. All right, RSPO, MSPO, or MS, what are called Malaysian Palm Oil Boards, and the council. They are starting to collaborate well, and I think we will see the industry accelerate.
That's great. Okay, Brian, thank you very much. It has been a quite interesting discussion with you. So I think this is the first meeting of many more.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Juan.